Like it's like 7 hours.
Well, now I gotta go.
This second. Yeah, exactly.
So you looked at the case lines, right?
Sounds like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
Wait. Good.
We have multiple people on. I wish Alex was here. And each of us has different. So that's you. We had gotten you together.
All right, so we are, I believe it is,
That's
There's a different time zone back there.
yes, it's about 8:37 a.m. Depending on how you want to look at it. Welcome to our talk. This is our wonderful starter motivational slide. Obviously, the topic of our talk is staying the course, staying relevant. And so, thank you everyone for coming. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
What he said.
What he said.
So, I don't know if any of you know me or not. My name is Tom Ryan. I'm a director of IT at Rutgers University Camden, which is in Camden, New Jersey. This is my 22nd or 23rd Cali conference. I've been at the university for just about 25 years. I missed the conference twice. Once was my son was born June 6th, so yes, I was here when he turned 16 yesterday. I know other people, Gary, are having an anniversary today. Congratulations, 23 years, I think.
Yes.
So congratulations, Gary.
Wedding anniversary.
I'm sorry.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
guys. Wedding anniversary.
I knew what you meant.
Okay, well, I hope so. And I'll swing you over to my partner here.
So I'm Phil Boll. I'm the IT guy for Pepperdine Law School, and really I'm more of a manager than an IT guy. So I try to hang out with the smart people, and they can lead me down the blind alleys, and we can both get jobs. But I've been at Pepperdine. This is my 27th year, doing a lot of the same things, but doing a lot of different things, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. And so we figure between the two of us, we've got over 50 years of experience in butting our head against the wall. So
We're not experts by any means, but hopefully we can have a group conversation today, because that's what we're envisioning. That's what Phil and I have been envisioning this all will be about. And so we'd like to take a quick poll, if you don't mind. How many people in here are faculty members? Okay. All right.
Yeah, reluctantly,
I
right?
know, right? I'm not really sure I want to admit I'm a faculty member. How about librarians?
all right.
Okay. And how about tech staff? All right. And just because I don't want to leave anybody out, do we have any others? Okay. All right. So it looks like
Plain state, yeah.
we've got people represented. So while we might talk about things that are relevant to the one group or the other, I think we're all asking ourselves the same questions.
Just curious, how many of you guys have added like an online course or an LLM or MLS in the last couple of years? Yeah, that's not changing. How many of you reduced enrollment, reduced headcount and staff?
How many have added a marketing department? Right. That's something new, right? Years ago, we had a marketing department. So everyone knows Brick, right? I don't know what else to say about this picture except to say that obviously what we're talking about today is what are the issues, right? What are the concerns that people have? Obviously Phil mentioned all the different things that are going on that are making people feel a little nervous. I know you talked about enrollment changes and LLMs and marketing departments. I'll ask the dreaded question: how many of us have experienced staff reduction? Right. Obviously, that doesn't.
Staff reduction without pain.
Right. So we all are acutely aware of these issues.
Yeah.
And so basically, we're kind of looking at it, three things, right? What's going on? Why are we doing what we're doing? And how can we help? How can we fix it? How can we achieve? How can we make it better for everyone?
How can we make it better? And again, we're just trading on our experience. There's been no studies done. Tom didn't do surveys all over the country or anything like that. This is our own personal experiences. We're sort of hoping to pull stuff from you guys. I know Florante's got a story or two. Ben probably has 2 stories. So we all have a few things to share on this, and so we're hoping to draw some of that out. I don't know how you guys are. I mean, this has been 27 years for me, and there have been days when things are just awesome. And there have been months, years, where things are not as awesome. Can anybody identify with that? Yeah, and you can just shout out, okay, how many guys have been doing this kind of stuff for over 5 years? I mean, yeah, so you see cycles over 15 years. Yeah, do you see cycles of stuff? And where I work with some terrific people. I shouldn't say some. All the folks I work with are terrific people. But we still run into challenges, and when things aren't going great, sometimes you kind of lose focus. And that's what we want to talk about a little bit. We recently went through a fairly significant remodel in the center of our building, and it impacted all the adjacent areas. So where we had to shut down areas that weren't even in the remodel, just because of jackhammers and all that kind of stuff. So we ended up having classes in 3 different facilities, and they weren't that far away, but I am understaffed to cover just my facility. And so we were running folks in different places. We had a room where we had to have 80 seats because we had a big class, couldn't put them anywhere else. So we're about 2 blocks down the hill. We're in Malibu, up on a hill overlooking the Pacific. Idyllic, right? Only if you look at the ocean.
Your window looks at the ocean, right?
I used to have an office where I could see somebody who could see the ocean. I've been moved. I did have that office for 12 years, and it was wonderful to think about those folks out there that could see the ocean. I don't need a window to do my job, and I'm not pressing for that. But if someone offered it to me, I would probably accept. But we had this classroom that we kind of supposedly owned for the duration of this semester. And 80 seats, we crammed a couple of extra tables in there, put all the chairs in, fire marshal's not listening, right? Ran some UL listed power extenders. You guys know what those are.
They were not connected to extension cords.
They weren't, but they did have power strips connected to them. And so we spidered this whole room for laptops, right? And it's one of those flexible spaces. And darn, if somebody else thought that was also their room. And every time, I think we had classes in there twice a day, every time we had to go back and reset the room up. And it was like, do you think it's, it wasn't terrible every time, but at least once a day, put all the tables back, put all the chairs back, rerun the power strips, and then go and test the AV because Lord knows that was going to work. That was stressful, and I wasn't personally involved in every reset of that classroom, but there's only 5 of us. And we used to have a 120,000 square foot building. All our classrooms were in one space, and now we're in 3 buildings with professors and students going all over, and it was stressful. And we ran flat out for a full year taking care of that. So just talking about motivation, talking about what's your why. Does anybody else have something like that? I'm not trying to top anyone.
I do. So just so we can all feel that we're not alone in the trenches, our library, so for some of you might have came in 2010 to Cali conference when Rutgers Camden hosted Cali. We had just undergone a wonderful new renovation, not quite as wonderful as this. And one of the things that got cut from the project was an elevator within the library, which meant that any time that
Oh, our
someone,
elevator got cut too.
amazing, right? So,
Actually, to tell you the truth, in the building, we had to put the elevator back.
so
So we
fast
didn't have an
forward,
elevator in the library.
right, all this time, and they finally said, and we had a ADA inspection, and they said, really, you should have an elevator in the library. And so, about a little over a year ago, right before last summer, actually further back than that, we finally got this approval that we would get the money to build a new elevator. And so, things came back and forth and everything else, and they decided at the end of March, early April, to start working on the elevator in the library. Okay? And so I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be horrible, but okay, it's not so bad. My app developers are right next to the elevator shaft, right? And of course, we're going to study for finals, is right around the corner from the elevator shaft. So originally, when they were building this, we were told that the only thing we weren't getting was the cabin. That all the other stuff would be done. And of course, they boarded it up, set it up. We never saw inside until they opened it up right before exams and realized that there was nothing inside the cabin. So they're jackhammering. They're hammering. They're doing this all during early May. Anything happen? Anybody's law schools? Early May. And so it's very, very frustrating for the students. And all my app developers wanted to leave because right next to their wall, they're trying to think and write code, and they're looking at their satisfaction. And so, while I didn't send a survey to everyone, everybody knows Gallup. And so we found this quick thing. It talks about what's going on, right? How are people staying motivated? You can see 63% of employees are not engaged, right? And I know that
This is not a higher education.
this is everybody, right? I mean, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, we know that we see ourselves and our staff sometimes suffer through these issues, right? 20%, 4% are actively disengaged. I don't know if you can make out. I can see it on the screens up here, but I don't think you can see it on here. The different facial expressions that they have on these people in the thing. I think it kind of flares out. So you can't see it. They just look like headless heads. But in reality, this actively disengaged person is angry, right? These are the people that have been wronged, right? 87% lack motivation and are unhappy. Right, and this person, you can't see their face, but they look like they're crying, right? They're upset, they're just like, they're getting beat down. I don't know, can you see it on that confidence monitor in the back?
Yes.
And so then, right, so we got all these people that are not engaged, they're actively disengaged, they're basically crying at work. We only have a mere 13% that are actively engaged at work.
Out of 200%.
Yes, let's not do the math. There's cross sections of people, right? There's cross sections of people that are.
Well, no, they're doing two. They're doing
180.
They're doing the motivation.
Yeah. So clearly we have a problem, right? This is very real, and I think that as you go on, right, and you're in the trenches for so long, this is what happens, right? These are the types of things that have a potential to grow up, to sprout, and lead to other issues. And of course, I think one of the main issues that it leads to is employee burnout, right? So one thing I want to tell you is, so obviously burnout can be several different things, right? And so for me, how many people in here work longer than their prescribed work week? Right? Right? I mean, let me ask a simpler
Wait,
question.
they're engaged. Did you see that?
Yes, they're engaged with us. Who in here actually works their prescribed work week? Because that's an easier question, right? Okay, you guys leave. Get out. Get out of here now. Let's just leave. Right?
Now they're disengaged.
They may be the ones that should be given the talk.
That's probably what
Yeah.
we should do, right?
Yeah.
And so, burnout can happen at all levels, and sometimes you can experience personal issues at work that can do it. You can have, so I've gone through any of you that know my history over the last few years. It's been a little rough patches here and there. One of the impact of the change that we're experiencing in legal education now is that we merged, right? So as you know, in 2013, we merged with the rest of the academic units on campus. So in Campus 9 in Camden, we still had a central IT group on campus, and then we had like all of the non-central, what we call distributed IT units. And so that one wasn't very stressful for me in 2013. I talked about that, and you know, the person who was in charge came to me and said, hey, we want you to take over and run all the distributed IT for campus. Well, that's easy, it's not stressful for me. And I was rejuvenated, right? I mean, we all get that, like, yes, here's a fresh opportunity, I'm gonna hit the ground running, and we'll go through that. Last May, 2018, slightly before that, they decided to take the next step, which was to merge all IT, both distributed and non-distributed, into one organization. And that was not, hey, Tom, you're the person for this job, right? And so when you're at that crossroads of your career, the crossroads of your life, like, what are you going to do? What's that next step? It is a very stressful thing. And you start wondering, am I burning out? Am I done? Am I ready to move on to the next step? So burnout, motivation, disengagement, these are some of the issues that we saw. Anybody else want to throw out or suggest any other issues with motivation? People, right? We hit the top two. Anyone? Gary? Something? Come on, you kept throwing my name out there earlier today. This is payback. I'm standing at the front of the stage. Come on, give me something.
I think just new challenges.
New challenges, right?
You know, you can do it. I'm doing this nearly as long as you, or maybe even longer. I've been doing it for 26 years. And I was at Hofstra for a long time. And I was at the point where you were doing the same thing over and over again, and that's why I looked for another opportunity. And this is it, and it's been fantastic. And you're always looking to try and do different things and reinvent the wheel. So, yeah, I can't stress enough, if you feel like you're burnt out, look for a new challenge. You don't mean you have to go outside the organization.
Hey, Phil, remind me again, why are we doing this, right? Why are we here? We got some thoughts on that.
My feeling about this whole topic is, it's not just the projects and the duties that we have to get done, it's the people we do it with. And the relationships with the people that we work with. And for me, I've gone through a lot of personal changes, while working in 27 years. I mean, that covers a lot of ground. I got married, we had a great life together for 9 years, and then we had kids. And I say that knowing, I'm pretty confident that my son is watching me right now.
Hi, Parker.
Parker's 13.
You just got the eye roll. I can hear it.
Did you eye roll, Parker? You can do it now if you haven't.
You can't just go in like this.
But when you go through, like, I don't know how many bosses I've had. My department is kind of the hot potato, or at least it feels like it at times. Do you guys ever feel that way? Mm-hmm. How many different divisions have you reported to? Anybody done more than 2 groups? Yeah. Who'd you report to before, Gary?
So where I was at Hofstra, I reported to the vice dean and the dean, and then they split up the vice deans into vice dean of, like academic affairs and vice dean for administration. I reported to vice dean of administration. We were water and oil, even though we're still friends after that. We just didn't get along when we were working with it, so I ended up reporting to the vice dean of academic affairs. When she stepped down, she went back to being director of the law library, and IT came under the law library. So I've had that share at Hofstra.
And do you ever, for me, I kind of feel like I got my law degree, I got a library degree, and a lot of times when we're saving lives in the trenches, you save a life by plugging their machine back in, right? And you're just like, I got a lot of experience, I can do a lot of things, I can bale hay, I can do, I don't want to do it, but I could probably slaughter a pig for you if you need that. But plugging in stuff, we're still needed, but what's our why? And is your why compelling? And,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I leaned on the cage.
Nope.
Just stand over.
oh,
Just a test, Phil.
it's just a test. Well,
Sorry.
I only get tests.
My bad. Parker, that's something that was not your guys' fault.
Well, just to tag off what Gary was saying, find a new challenge, find that kind of stuff. Where I've been, every time we change positions, or I change reporting structure, I think, well, I was reporting to the dean of the law school, and then I went back to reporting to the library dean, and then I reported to somebody else that they didn't tell me who it was going to be for a while. And, that's cool. Sometimes I feel like, okay, they're not worried about our department. We can float for a while. But that challenge can be kind of stressful because you don't know kind of if the other shoe is going to drop or are we going to get wiped out. Is Central IT going to take up our department and, just fold us in and kind of push us aside?
So if I could just tag team on that remark, obviously I just share with you the uncertainty. So mind you that while I was going through that uncertainty, right, we had been told, that the unit had been told in January that the merger was going to happen. I had known about it for several months before that. So I had all these employees on both sides of the fence that went from January till May with uncertainty about what was going to happen, right? And so you're trying to deal with all these other issues. And this wasn't just a random thought, could this happen? This was this is going to happen. This change will occur. And for 5 months, nobody had any details about what was going on. So it wasn't just affecting me personally, it was affecting the entire department.
So you have to be strong for your team. And that's hard when you don't know if the other shoe's going to fall. Yeah. So is your why compelling? And has anybody read Simon Sinek's Start With Why? See, this is a very business-oriented crowd here. In a nutshell, he's like, you don't have anything until you know why you're doing what you're doing. And that's kind of what Tom and I have been interviewing each other on this for some time. What is your why, and why do you do what you do? I have to come back to that periodically, and sometimes it's done sort of to/for me, but when there's like a university retreat and I get to spend time with my colleagues around the university and I realize these people are terrific. I love working with these people. I should be connected to them more often. Sometimes I end up going to somebody's office to help them out. They work in the clinical department, and they're working with battered wives and getting them to safety, or they're dealing with human trafficking. And I'm thinking, this is cool. These people are doing really neat stuff, and we're supporting this. And so we have to come back to that and take a deep breath. You guys know that if you spray a little bit of that spray nicotine under your tongue, you guys seen this stuff? It enhances your cognitive ability. I don't know how many points, but it's significant for some time. But now
Curious where you've read that.
but now the research has come out, and you've probably heard this also. Just a couple of deep breaths can do almost exactly the same thing, and you don't have to carry nicotine around with you.
So, a couple of deep drags from a cigarette will achieve that, is what you're saying?
Apparently the deep breath.
He's trying to
from
accomplish both.
from smoking cigarettes. That is a
okay.
calming thing, and then you're also doing some drug delivery at the same time. But, yeah, it's really interesting. But taking a couple deep breaths, metaphorically and physically, can help you step back and think about what you're doing. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we'll get more into that later. Yeah.
Why? So we have, as everyone just saw all the slides, mostly because I accidentally leaned on the hand key, we did want to share this with you. Obviously, does anybody not know what this movie is? Okay, I did hit play.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
Good one.
Oh, that's terrific, Peter.
And you guys know the next line, right? You know the next line? Anyone? This guy's got management written all over it.
He's a real straight shooter.
I've never used.
So this is our first time, both of us, using slides. Google Slides users?
Yeah, just did it this
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, so that's, I'm gonna blame it on that, yeah. So Phil talked about the why, right? And so this is an idea. And so everyone has their own reason for doing what they're doing. And what we've talked about, we've discovered is that truly if your core values and your beliefs align with the mission of where you're working, right? That will help you feel motivated and to feel, that can help drive you. If you're at a place, and hopefully none of us are, that you don't feel the same way that they do about different things, obviously that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a short-term problem, it's going to be a long-term problem, it's going to hurt you.
That's
feel
where
motivated.
the searching for challenges potentially outside your current position. Yeah. And maybe not even leaving that position, but finding some other activity outside of work that,
drives you.
yeah.
That
should be
motivates you,
there.
right? And so obviously for some of your private schools and public schools, you're going to have different missions, you're going to have different values, and you're going to need to find what works for you. Some of the things about Pepperdine that's doing that he associates with that helps him, obviously Rutgers has the same thing. We are very much.
It's not exactly the same.
I think everybody knows that. They have, so obviously civic engagement is very important for us, right? Helping people. Obviously, I think everybody's got that. Bill, I hope.
We say we do.
But, again, these are things that will help you, right? And it'll help you to stay motivated. And obviously, the other thing is your priorities, your focus, and your self-care, right? This is obviously, everyone talks about work-life balance.
I objected to this.
Yes,
Yeah.
Phil totally objected to this.
It's a little bit
He's
too
like, oh,
cliche.
I know it is cliche, but it is a very real problem, right? I asked earlier how many people worked more than their prescribed workday. And besides the gunners sitting there, everybody else in this room raised their hand, right? So let me ask you this question. Do the people, be honest with yourselves, right? Do you feel like that is impacting your work-life balance? Am I the only one, right? Are we living to work or are we working to live? Right? It's a cliche, yes, 100%. It's a cliche, but when you're trying to stay motivated, when you're trying to stay relevant, right? Maybe you don't do this, but I guarantee you that some of your staff or people that you work with do this, where they work longer because they think it will impress the boss, right? Like, oh my God, no, you might not do it, but there are people that do that, right? There are people who think like, oh my God, like I can't leave at 4:30 if the boss is still here, because then he'll think I'm not, or she'll think that I'm not working hard enough.
And this is where the relationships come into play, and this is where, especially if you're in a leadership position, you're going to set the tone for your group, right? If your boss is worked up and anxious all the time, that's not going to be great for the folks that are working with that person. And I know I've been that person probably too much. And I like the folks on my team. I love them. I don't want to put them in a position where they've got to be worked up and anxious because I'm worked up and anxious. So it's incumbent upon me to set that example and to go home when it's time to go home, and to have a life outside of work, even if I don't say work-life balance, because I don't think there's any real balance consistently. I think we go through cycles, right? When you're in a construction phase, you got to work hard and do crazy stuff. But when you're not in that, it doesn't have to be like that all the time.
I think that they don't mean like every day, every minute has to be
Okay,
like that.
all right.
So I think
You
they
can
mean,
interpret it the way you like.
You can look at it big picture, right? And you can see the difference, so.
But don't you think the role of IT has changed so much in the last, even the last 5 or 10 years, where IT is a utility, and you have online classes, and we have 4 schools other than the law school that use our building, and so they use it at night, we use it during the day. Distance education, and it's just, people do stuff 24/7, 365.
They do.
So this is a good point. So one of the things when Phil and I were talking, I brought up specifically about do people, what's that relevancy for you as in your position at your work? Because IT has become a commodity, right? But I don't think of it like that. I think of services. Throughout all the years, we changed the services that we offer, right? Maybe minute changes, but we're changing the services that we offer so that, right? If I asked 20 years ago, who in this room runs an email server?
Yeah.
Right? Everybody ran an email server 20 years ago.
Mhm.
If I ask today, how many people run an email server, even if you do run one, don't raise your hand.
But we don't use our email server like we used to. We have a couple of specialized addresses, and that's it. Everything else is Google. And that's
Okay, Phil, thank you,
great.
thank you. But your point is valid, right? Because it's changing. Our role has changed. And so how do you stay motivated? Like if you're a system administrator and you ran the email server, how do you continue to feel motivated when there's no longer an email server? Right? Now, there's a lot of different ways to think about that. And there's a reality. There is a reality in IT. We ask the questions, staff reductions, we ask. But to me, we're going to address this when we get to the end, about things that you can do. And Phil talked about it, building relationships, looking at change management of yourself, right? And looking at what that future is so that you can get to the point where
I love you. You complete me.
you can feel complete. Well, we did not play that video when we were doing our testing.
I love you too, Tom.
Yeah.
You too, Gary.
Everybody knew. Clearly there's a whole lot of emotions, right? This is a very emotional scene, right? We all know that her response was, "You had me at
Hello.
Hello.
hello."
Yeah.
Right? You had me at
Well,
hello.
I'm curious, what you guys are doing to meet those changes.
So we are also, the law school moved away from the main campus. So we're 35 miles, but pretty much takes you an hour. But then 2 years ago, we finally hired a CIO. One of the first things she did was to bring everybody into one department. So I've been reporting to the dean of the law school. My wife works at the dean of the law, my wife was the dean of the law school. I'm invested in those people.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm reporting to the CIO, who, to her credit, twice a month comes and spends the day at the law school. She uses a spare office, and she does a lot of work, but we always meet for an hour, hour and a half.
So you
And I
maintain that.
try, we have bi-weekly directors meetings, so I drive 2 hours for a 45-minute meeting, when I can, to try and stay connected.
I'm curious how many of us connect with our peers and colleagues around the university outside of meetings. It's so hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, define connect.
Yeah.
I mean, something like with the collaboration software, I mean, theoretically, something like Slack is like
But
yelling
you
over
can't
people.
hold their hand.
I don't want to.
It's probably not love.
So I think the problem is, I think that depends on where you're at, right? Because, for instance, I have a right? So everyone, I don't know if everyone knows this, I don't drink. So there's an issue there, right? I'm gonna feel awkward if I'm going with the employees to go drink, and I'm just gonna sit there and not drink, and look at them. And two, there's also the concept that they should be free to be who they are without the boss,
Yeah.
there. And so,
The trouble with being the boss is who's your peer? Who do you connect with? Who do you get to let your hair down with and say, I got this situation, and I don't know what I'm gonna
Mostly
do.
outside of work.
Yeah. And that's, I actually have friends like that at work that I talk to, but I don't talk to them because I'm busy trying to stay late and get more stuff done. And, that's one of my challenges is to, and I've had probably 3 or 4 phone calls just in the last probably 6 weeks where I'm like, I need to ask you to lunch. And they're like, we eat lunch every day. Let's get together. And I still got to go and put that meeting request in for just a lunch, just an informal connection. So we need that stuff.
So another thing I think is very beneficial, obviously we transitioned into the how. How can we help ourselves do this? Phil just gave a great example. I would add that another thing that is very nice is how many people in this room have a peer coach?
A mentor.
Well, mentor is someone who's usually mentoring down, right? They could be mentoring sideways, but a peer coach, it could be either way. Your peer coach is usually sideways. Does anybody in here have a peer coach besides me?
I had,
Or like a professional life, personal life, I mean.
No, like at work, like has a
No.
peer coach at work, someone that you can talk to, that someone who is at your level. It could be someone on a different campus,
oh, okay.
15 minutes away, half an hour away, right? So I would encourage everyone in this room, if you don't have one, to seek one out. And I will tell you that is, so I last year, I also had the benefit of all that stress going on. I had an IT leadership training that was with part of the Big Ten Alliance, and I got to participate in that. And one of the best takeaways for me was, and I could talk a lot about that, and we're going to bring up some of the things, but I'll tell you that the number one most important thing for me from that was a peer coach. Somebody I could talk to about things that were troubling me, and someone to bounce ideas off of that knew where I was in the trenches, right? That understood that. And so if you don't have that person and you're frustrated, or if you're lacking that motivation, if you feel like you need that motivation, this is a great way that you could do that, right? And the nice thing about partnering with someone at your university that's not under you, they'll understand the trenches. So you've already got that built-in understanding. You've got somebody who understands what it's like to be at the university, to be with the new structure, has been going through the same thing that you are, that you can commiserate with at a level that you couldn't do with if you have subordinates, it's just not possible, right? You don't want to do that. And the other thing that's really nice is how many people in here actually do team building exercises with their staff?
Callie's doing it right now, so.
But I'll tell you, it's sad, man. I think 2 people raised their hand.
Sejal, what do you guys do?
So, every year we take the whole staff out, do a little lunch. Everyone's free to just be themselves. We go out for 2 hours the whole day and then we let them loose. But it's a nice thing to just rejuvenate after the whole year, appreciate them, let them all bond and know each other. Because a couple of years ago, IT/AV merged, and so there's still that little distance that they forget they report back to me. But we like to bring them together. And then with the IT group, I just go in every morning, say hello. I'll go down in the afternoon, say hello, hey, what's going on? We'll just collaborate. Just a few minutes, we're on the same floor. And then with AV, we do the same stuff. I'll go down, I'll talk to them. So just bringing them together and talking with each other. And then we'll bring them up and try to get them to cross over with their responsibilities. We're all short-staffed, so they all know each other's bits and pieces. So they help out whenever they can, and they feel like they're being challenged.
Which means
So-
they feel like there could be growth.
Yes,
There could be
there's
other
growth. So
benefits.
like during exam times, we don't have support staff. The student workers go off because they don't have exams. So we'll bring in the AV staff. They'll be trained on Wi-Fi, exam software, a lot of different things. Frontline help desk. So they see growth there and they're really enthusiastic. They'll come straight on. Just a few little things.
So I'll just add one thing that obviously that's a great example, but what I heard from that one, I thought, and I think others would be beneficial, really beneficial, not only the positive outcomes of that, but it sounds like it's something that's very inexpensive.
Very, yeah.
It's very inexpensive, so it's a way, something that you can do that won't impact your budget and yet will pay, I believe, and I hope you concur, massive dividends.
Oh, massive. Like, just taking them out for lunch, it just, like, boosts their morale a little bit more,
And
saying
they
that,
can leave work
you
2
know.
hours early.
Yeah, and
Right?
to be honest, I take my boss, who's sitting here. She's also there, and so they feel like the whole leadership team's there, and they feel really appreciated. So we do that
Nice.
once a year. We try to do it twice a year, but just summer is the time when we can get out.
But doing something.
Something.
Is fantastic. And I think someone else had their hand raised about, can you tell us what you do?
We do something very similar. Last year we went to, we're at Duke, the Duke Lemur Center, and then toured the football stadium. Then we went to the Coach K's museum, or whatever the hell it's called. But you know, it was a way for us to just get away, unplug. We often have lunches, and then take off for the rest of the day. Yeah, it's and we've even incorporated games, like cooperative games, either at the end of the sessions, just to kind of get people kind of loosened up a little bit, and also again thinking about working cross training and that sort of thing.
So, yeah.
We did two things. We did a cooking competition as part of the retreat, where we broke up into teams, and then it was restaurant wars kind of thing. We brought some people back who had retired to judge everything. Then one year we did a thing where it was my team's the library and technology, so it's the library against the law school doing a kickball game. So we took over the big baseball stadium, and it was a secret to my team. And I said, "There's something going on," and then the dean and all the faculty who were in town came out after that.
Fantastic. Yes.
We have a law school-wide professional development committee that not only tries to bring in like lunch and learns or set up things where we can learn from each other, we get the library to do a presentation, IT's done a presentation, but they also do a staff retreat once or twice a year. And that could be a bus trip to another Penn State campus to see what it's like somewhere else, or sometimes we did a scavenger hunt in town, in Carlisle, to learn more about the town and the law school. And then afterwards, we did minute-to-win-it games where people are eating donuts off strings and hula hoops and all kinds of goofy stuff like that. That was law school
That's
live.
fantastic.
We did it in the summer, and it was fun. So.
Yeah, well, what we also do at the school too is I try to bond with the different departments, development, alumni, career services. We try to get together with the different departments and teams, and we had some really fun times. We've gone to a company called Bad Axe, where it was axe throwing,
Okay.
competition.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. We've done rock climbing. And we toned it down this past year where we did like the little things where we were doing the little terrariums with the succulents and that, and so, but we were competing against one another, and there were prizes, but it was a lot of fun. So it's not only doing it within your departments, it's across other departments within the school too, to get to know folks.
Fantastic. So just to
Tony had one, I wonder.
recap, so about the cooking, the dining, so we're renovating our dining on campus. One of the things that they're doing this summer is they're building a teaching kitchen. And so they're talking about it, and they said, oh, and we'll have team building exercises. It's like, yes, everyone's got to eat, they love to eat, it's a great idea. And so these are things that can really help energize and motivate the staff. And also feel like the unit cares about them, right? That they're making an investment in them. How many people in here have felt sometimes like your school's not making an investment in you? Right? It happens.
It's a feeling, right?
It's a
It
feeling.
may not be a fact, but it's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
So obviously some other things, because I'm looking at the clock and we're running out of time.
Oh, no.
So we've got some things. So we want to
There'll
talk,
be more
obviously,
movie.
you can see the Start With The Why by Simon Sinek. Sinek, did I say that right? That Phil talked about earlier. These are some good books that you can read that could help you.
Or listen to on Audible.
Right, you could do that. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't always feel motivated. When I do, I attend a Cali conference, and this might seem like a joke. It is a little bit, but professional development is very important to your staff, right? And so networking, the connections that you make is very important, right? And so attending professional conferences, especially something like the Cali conference, because for those of us now, so obviously, if I could just, so I'm a tech person, so I'm gonna exclude the AA, right? And AALS, which are two units for the faculty in the library. If you're a staff member, an IT person at a law school, what do you have? What's your professional?
There's ABA Tech Show, which I went to for the very first time ever this year, now that I'm out of tech.
It was a blast. You were looking for your friends, huh?
I'm connected, I saw Uncle Jim there. It was great.
But again, these are important things to do. And obviously, just throw it real quick on the screen. Won't read through them, but these are some other things that could help. I would like to focus really on training. Training is very, very important, right? Yes, it's great to attend a conference, but I think it's more fulfilling to get training, right? To keep your professional development. There are some great resources that seem to be very popular lately. I know a lot of universities are licensing lynda.com, right? It's not perfect, but it's a great way that you could spend a few hours there, right? And get some professional training to feel relevant, to look at things. And obviously going to all those other things are again, wonderful examples of things that you can do for your own professional development.
See, I mean, yeah, it's a short list. Anybody have any other things that they, or what do you love to do to stay connected? I love to go to trade shows and do cross-pollination and see things that have nothing to do with what I do. So if there's a construction show in town, I'm gonna go look at the cool sliding glass doors. I just like that stuff. I go to CES every year. I've stopped asking folks on Technoids if anybody's gonna be there, because no one ever says yes.
Well,
But it's a lot of fun.
There's two things I did. When we were trying to get, one of the things when I started here was trying to get students more technology proficient. And I learned quickly it wasn't just students, but it was alumni and attorneys. So we started a legal tech seminar series with the CLE, and that kind of, we do it Thursday, every other Thursday morning, about 6 or 7 times a semester. We get a core of attorneys that come out 8 in the morning, love it. Parking's pretty good in the morning. What that morphed into is they asked me to be on the South Carolina Tech Bar Committee. And so I get to help do policy and help, the rules on that. And the other thing I would try and tell you guys, I have to give the dean credit for that. Get involved in a local nonprofit, or in my case, it was Little League. It's, and getting involved with the community. And I'm living proof anybody could be president of a Little League. Those are things that, it really helped, both those things. I'm now working with the legal community, and it's given me, a professional sense that we're doing more than just, helping students, and working with kids, which is, I love coaching kids. And
So just to touch on Gary's point, I think that's a great suggestion. I served for 7 years on my local school board. I was president for one meeting. That's because the other president wasn't able to be, the president and vice president weren't there, but it's a great, it gives you a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I thought you said you were present for one meeting.
President didn't.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. I tell people that the world in South Carolina and Columbia revolves around 3 things: law, technology, and baseball. Because a lot of people I got to know in Little League, being a board and then president, were attorneys. And so I often use them and help them. And they come in and actually do, like Jason Boberts, who works for the South Carolina State Supreme Court. He comes in and does e-filing classes. Why? Because I knew him from Trenton Little League, and his daughter was a really good softball player.
And I just want to say that it is pretty much impossible to talk to Gary and not have baseball be in the conversation.
It's true.
It's very true. But I think I'm a fan of baseball. And soccer, if my son ever watches, is what you know.
But the thing is, the reason is that you can make those connections
Yes.
in the community.
Networking, relationships,
Really
right?
does. Oh.
I'll say another cliche statement that my leadership thing taught me: relationship is currency. All right, it is a cliched statement, but it is absolutely, positively.
Currency in the nicest sense of the word.
Yes.
But culture eats strategy for breakfast. That was the other one I remember.
I know that one.
I took that session a couple years before.
So, actually, I was at Penn State and University Park was our first meeting. The other thing about that would be with 3 lenses, right? So instead of you, anyone familiar with 3 lenses, MBA, anything like that? You have to look at things always through 3 lenses: cultural, right, strategy, and political, right? If you don't understand those, you'll have some personal frustrations, and so you should always make sure you do that. And so,
New life, old life, yeah.
once you get through this,
Well, I have a little personal story to tell you about 9 months ago, I injured my hand, and it changed a lot of things for me. But before that, if we could go back over 20 years, I was attending my second Cali, and I had just come from the doctor's office, earlier that week, and I was having acid indigestion from stress, and so the doc had, prescribed me some pills. And I was unpacking my suitcase. I had a roommate at Cali, and I'm telling this guy who's becoming a friend and a mentor. He's 10 years older than me, and I'm telling him, I guess I'm stressed now. I've got some medication to prove it. And he reaches into his bag, pulls out a big bottle of exactly the same thing. Is this what you're talking about? I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to end up like this guy. But you know what? I was able to deal with the whole reflux and the stress-induced reflux, but I didn't really abandon my, developing bad habits. And last October, I hurt my hand, and I was in a place where I couldn't drive. I couldn't tie my own shoes. It was temporary. But I had to really rethink, how I do what I do. And I only took a week off because it's just a hand, right? I mean, it's not like you can't do other stuff. And I got Dragon installed on my computer and all. I still haven't used it. I haven't even set it up yet. But because I was busy doing other things. But the way I would work is I would go to work. Listen to the radio, crazy people yelling about stuff. I show up to work, I'm already like, we need to get this done, this done, this done. I'm very task oriented. And then I'd come home from work, and I'd be exhausted. I'd come home around 8:30, 7:30, 8:30, somewhere in there. And my commute home was about 45 minutes to an hour. And I'll come home, and my kids' stuff will be all over the entrance of the house, and I'll be thinking, we don't sit down and watch TV if we've got stuff laying around. We don't sit down and watch TV if we've got our clothes to put away. And I'm thinking task list all the way down, and I am not the friendliest guy when I've got the task that needs to be, we need to start checking our boxes, guys. And I realize I'm this guy at home, I'm this guy at work. I don't need to be this guy. And I had to really think about that, and thank God I had this boss at the time who was modeling something that I just thought was incredible. He was a new boss to me. I show up to our second meeting, 2 times in a row. I'm late to the meeting, and I'm thinking, oh geez, subconsciously I resent this reporting structure. I can't be this way. I don't want to be easy to get along with. I want to be the guy that people want to work with. And so straight up, when I show up late the second time, I'm like, I am so sorry. I do not want to communicate to you that I don't respect your time, and I want to get the job done. That's why we're here, right? I want to be part of the team. And he just looked at me and he said, there's grace for this. I need grace, you need grace. Let's just get down to business. And I was like, wow, no one's ever, people are nice to me, and said, yeah, don't worry about it. But he gave me something that I don't think I was willing to receive in any other position. And that was, favor when I didn't deserve it. And that started to develop something inside of me to where I realized, I need to communicate this to my family. I need to communicate this to my staff. To not be, and I don't rake people over the coals, at least I hope I don't. When something goes wrong, I want people to try hard and do things and maybe make mistakes, and we just, we learn from it and move on. But I want to get out of that box checking mentality, and I'm talking about myself. I don't know if anybody else here identifies with that. but I got quite a list, and I keep updating it. But, offering that, that favor, that unmerited, positivity, it's made a big difference. At least it's made a difference inside of me. I hope it's making a difference inside of our folks that we work with. And I know that I've had to consciously think, you know what, does this really matter? It doesn't really matter that much. I don't need to rake this guy over the coals. Let's just move forward. And a little story with my boss. We were in the midst of construction. We had a project that needed to get done before classes started, about 4 or 5 weeks out. We sit down at a table, and another group from the university says, we're not going to be able to do what we said we'd be able to do. And I'm thinking, I'm so glad it's not me having to say that, because I don't know what this guy's going to say. I'm still kind of new with this guy as my boss. I thought, you know what, these guys are going to get it. And my boss just looked around and he said, what do we got? What do you think we should do to move forward? How are we going to move forward from this point? How are we going to meet our goals? No recrimination. No, no, you guys should have thought ahead. None of that. And he modeled it a second time for me. But, we all need to just give grace and move forward. And that really hit me between the eyes. And that's when I started to really think about how I do my checklists at home, as well as my checklists at work. So I can't give what I won't receive myself. And I'm starting to appreciate receiving that, and I'm learning to give it. I'm not there yet, but it's made a huge difference for me on the inside. And somebody just asked me last week, I bet it's really crazy in the summertime for you guys. And usually my response would be, it's absolutely nuts. I'm so stressed. I'm stressed out of my mind. And this is for the first time in almost 27 years, I was able to say, you know what? We're really busy, but it's all right. And it's not because it's different at work. It's different for me.
So Phil is really having a self-reflection, right? I'm very good at self-reflection. This is helping him. And so one of the things that I would recommend all of you do is practice reflection. So an simple, easy way to do it is do some defensive calendaring on a weekly basis. Give yourself time during a workday to reflect upon.
Margin. Give yourself a margin.
And do that. And so, because we're basically out of time.
Let me say one more thing.
Whoops.
You're
killing me.
Just, I just started this about 6 months ago. Every morning, no matter what, I go down to my garage. My wife's a triathlete. She's crazy. She goes out and she does like intense workouts, like all the time. 2-a-days, not every day, but she's a nut, okay, and she wins. So you can't tell her to not win, right? Who's gonna say that? And I'm thinking, I'm so jealous. I hurt my knee years ago. I used to be a runner, and I just don't do that now. I'm so jealous, but what do I love to do? I love to make sawdust with big equipment. I love to be in my garage where all my tools are and just be there. So every single morning, I go down to my garage, and I sit there and I meditate. Breathing in, breathing out. It's not the stuff, okay? I'm a Christian, so I do my other sort of Jesus stuff, but it centers me every morning, and then I get up from that after just a few minutes. I put away a couple of tools, maybe I sharpen a chisel or something, spend about 5 minutes, and oh my gosh, between turning off the stupid talk radio in the morning and doing that, it has completely changed my day. And I just recommend it.
All right.
Little meditation.
And so, good news, at least for Phil, paradigm shift. And so that concludes our talk, and we are right on time. So thank you everyone for coming.
Tom's got a lot of answers.
No. I just want to say thank you. I hope that we tried when we were going back and forth about this. We decided that we wanted to do audience participation throughout. And so obviously we had a lot of that in the midst of it, but if there are any questions, if anybody has any, either ask now or come down and see us afterwards. But I hope that y'all take away something very positive from all this.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, you know, the Cali group, I mean, some of my best friends in the world are at Cali. And it's just been a terrific, terrific organization. So those of you that are new, you know, these are your pals, these are your best friends. You know, we have a
That's
friend.
the difference about higher ed, right?
Yeah,
Long time friends.
We're competing, but we're not.
yeah. And it's kind of cool, because, you know,